The ER had gone unnaturally quiet. No monitors beeping, no voices raised, just the low vibrating growl of a German shepherd standing guard over a blood-soaked stretcher. For 5 hours the K9 had not moved, not an inch. Doctors tried to step closer, he blocked them. Security reached for tranquilizers, he bared his teeth. Even as the wounded Navy SEAL slipped in and out of consciousness, the dog remained planted at his side like a living oath. Then a rookie nurse appeared at the edge of the trauma bay. She looked too young, too new, her badge still stiff. Her hands shook just slightly. No one noticed her at first, until she slowly rolled up her sleeve. A small tattoo emerged on her inner forearm. Minimal, precise, military. The K9 froze. The growl stopped, and for the first time in 5 hours the dog took a step back, as if recognizing something no one else in the room could see. That was the moment every protocol in the hospital broke, and the moment a buried truth came clawing its way to the surface. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from and what your local time is. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you enjoy intense hospital dramas with unexpected twists, consider subscribing. This one changes everything over a single tattoo. Rain hammered the concrete outside Riverside Memorial Hospital, turning the ambulance bay into a mirror of red and white reflections. It was just past 2:00 a.m., the kind of hour when exhaustion dulled judgment and mistakes were borne quietly without witnesses. Inside the emergency department, the air smelled of antiseptic and wet nylon as paramedics rushed in and out, shouting vitals over the constant hum of machines. For Emily Carter, it was her first overnight trauma shift. Her badge still felt too clean against her scrubs. Registered nurse, Emily Carter, RN. The plastic edges hadn't softened yet. She stood near the supply cart, counting saline bags for the 3rd time, more to steady her breathing than because the department needed them counted. Around her, experienced nurses moved with sharp efficiency, no wasted steps, no wasted words. Carter, someone called. "Stay out of the way unless you're asked." Emily nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." She told herself it was normal. Rookie treatment. Earn your place. Keep your head down. Outside, thunder cracked deep close, and then slicing through the storm came another sound. Low, mechanical. Growing louder by the second. Heads turned. "That's a bird," someone muttered. Before Emily could ask what kind, the overhead speakers crackled to life. "Incoming military medevac. Helipad ETA 2 minutes. Trauma team stand by." The mood shifted instantly. Dr. Nolan Pierce, the attending physician on duty, straightened from the chart he'd been half reading. "All right, people. This isn't a drill. Let's move." Emily felt her pulse spike. Military medevac meant severe trauma. Gunshot wounds, blast injuries, complications you didn't see in civilian accidents. She followed the others toward the trauma bays as the building itself began to vibrate. The helicopter's rotors thundered overhead, rattling ceiling panels and sending a shiver through the floor. Rain whipped sideways across the helipad as the aircraft touched down. Seconds later, the doors burst open. 2 flight medics rushed in first, soaked and breathless, followed by a stretcher moving fast, too fast. The man on it was big, broad-shouldered, his tactical vest sliced open and dark with blood. His face was gray beneath the harsh lights, jaw clenched even in unconsciousness. "Male mid-30s," a medic shouted. "Multiple penetrating injuries, massive blood loss, hypotensive en route. Name's Jack Mercer, Navy SEAL." The word SEAL landed heavy in the room, and then the dog came in. A German shepherd, powerful and alert despite exhaustion, pacing beside the stretcher with a rigid intensity that froze the entire bay. His fur was matted with rain and blood, some his handlers, some not. A harness clung to his frame marked with faded military patches. "Whoa, hey," security barked. "There's an animal in here." The K9 stopped short, positioning himself between the stretcher and the staff. His ears flattened slightly, lips pulling back just enough to show teeth. "Not attacking. Warning. That dog's not letting anyone near him," a nurse whispered. Dr. Pierce frowned. "Get animal control. Now." Emily watched the dog's eyes dark, sharp, tracking every movement. They flicked to the surgeon's hands, then back to the man on the stretcher. Protective. Focused. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The trauma team tried to work around the K9, adjusting IV lines from a distance, calling out vitals. Every time someone stepped too close to Jack Mercer's chest, the dog reacted low, growl, tense posture, unwavering. "We don't have time for this," Dr. Pierce snapped. "He's bleeding out. We need to move him to OR." Security approached cautiously. "Sir, if we sedate the dog," no one of the flight medics said sharply. "That dog stayed with him the entire flight. He won't leave." "Then restrain it," Pierce shot back. "Or remove it." "I don't care how." Emily felt something tighten in her chest. She didn't know why, she barely knew what she was looking at, but the scene felt wrong. Not chaotic. Loaded. She edged closer, careful to stay behind the line everyone else seemed afraid to cross. From here, she could see the dog more clearly. His paws were planted squarely. His breathing was controlled despite the tension. This wasn't fear-driven aggression. This was guarding. Emily glanced at the patient. Jack Mercer's head was turned slightly to the side, lips parted, chest rising unevenly. Blood soaked through the bandages around his torso, pooling beneath the stretcher. 5 hours later, someone would say the dog hadn't moved that entire time. Right now, the clock was just starting. Carter, a senior nurse, hissed, "Why are you staring? Get back." Emily flinched. "Sorry." She stepped away, but her eyes stayed on the K9. Something caught her attention, a small detail most people missed in the rush. Every time someone reached toward Jack's upper chest, near the inside pocket of his torn vest, the dog reacted more strongly. The growl deepened. The muscles in his shoulders tightened. Not the IV lines, Emily thought. Not the legs. That spot. Her stomach twisted. Vitals dropping, a resident called out. "BP's crashing." Dr. Pierce swore under his breath. "That's it. I'm done waiting." He turned toward security. "Prepare a tranquilizer." The word hit Emily like ice water. The K9 sensed the shift immediately. His growl sharpened, echoing off the tile walls, stopping everyone in their tracks. Emily took a step forward without realizing it. Don't someone warned her quietly. But she couldn't look away. The dog wasn't just protecting his handler. He was protecting something else. And whatever it was about to push this already fragile night straight into disaster. Hour 1 bled into Hour 2 without anyone in the trauma bay fully realizing it. The rain outside eased into a steady drizzle, but inside Riverside Memorial the pressure only thickened. Jack Mercer's vitals hovered in a dangerous gray zone, barely stable, never safe. Blood transfusion bags emptied and were replaced. Orders were barked, repeated, overridden. And through it all, the German Shepherd remained exactly where he had planted himself, body aligned with the stretcher like a final lock no one could pick. His name, Emily learned, was Rex. One of the flight medics finally said it aloud, voice hoarse. "That's Rex. He's been with Mercer since selection. Combat K9. Not a pet." Dr. Pierce exhaled sharply. "I respect that. But respect doesn't stop hemorrhaging." Hospital administration arrived next. Linda Hawthorne, the night operations supervisor, heels clicking too loudly for the hour. She took in the scene with thinly veiled irritation. "What's going on?" she demanded. "The dog won't move," Pierce said. "And we can't get the patient upstairs." Linda's eyes narrowed at Rex. "This is a hospital, not a kennel. We have liability issues." Emily watched from the medication station, pretending to relabel syringes. Her hands moved automatically, but her attention never left the dog or the man beneath him. Rex's ears twitched when Linda stepped closer. "Careful," a security guard murmured. "He hasn't bitten anyone, but I don't care," Linda snapped. "Get animal control on the phone again." "They're 40 minutes out," security replied. "Storm delays," Linda cursed under her breath. Unacceptable. Emily felt the familiar pull, the instinct she'd learned long before nursing school, back when hesitation cost lives. She forced herself to stay still. "You're new. You don't outrank anyone. One wrong move, and you're done." Still, she watched. Rex's gaze flicked constantly between Jack's face and the hands of whoever stood closest. His breathing synced almost unconsciously with his handler's shallow rise and fall. Every now and then, Jack's fingers twitched, brushing Rex's fur. The dog would lower his head just enough to touch Jack's arm. "He's anchoring him," Emily realized. "Keeping him here." A nurse near her whispered, "That dog's been like that for hours. It's like he knows something we don't." Emily swallowed. By Hour 3, the ER waiting room had begun to feel the ripple effects. Ambulances backed up. Non-critical patients complained. Phones rang unanswered. "This can't continue," Linda said flatly. "Dr. Pierce, you have my authorization. Sedate the animal." The word sedate landed hard. Rex stiffened instantly. Security lifted the tranquilizer rifle slowly, carefully. The red dot trembled on the wall as the guard tried to steady his aim without provoking the dog. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. No one of the senior nurses said under her breath, "This is going to get ugly." Emily didn't know what she was going to say until the sound came out of her mouth. "Wait." The room froze, not because her voice was loud, but because it wasn't. Calm, steady, out of place. Every head turned. Linda stared at her. "Who are you?" Emily felt heat rush to her face. "Emily Carter, RN." Pierce frowned. "This isn't your call." "I know," Emily said quickly. "But just give me 30 seconds. Linda scoffed. "Absolutely not." But the delay had already happened. Rex's eyes were on Emily now, not aggressive, not relaxed. Assessing. Emily took one careful step forward, stopping well short of the stretcher. She kept her hands visible, palms open. "I'm not here to touch him," she said softly, mostly to Rex. "I just want to look." Pierce's jaw tightened. Carter Dr. Emily interrupted, surprising even herself. "If you sedate him and he reacts, you'll have a 90-pound combat-trained K9 panicking in a trauma bay. That's a bigger risk than waiting one more minute." Silence. Linda hesitated, clearly weighing optics against outcomes. Finally, she snapped. 1 minute. Then we proceed. Emily nodded. "Thank you." She shifted her attention fully to Rex. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched into him, the faint tremor in his hind legs, the dried blood crusted near his collar. But beneath it was discipline, control forged by repetition and trust. She scanned Jack's gear again. The torn vest, the inner chest pocket. "That's it," she thought. "That's what he's guarding." Emily leaned slightly to the side, angling her view without crossing Rex's invisible boundary. The pocket had been ripped open, not cleanly like from shrapnel, but jagged, as if someone had cut it after the fact. Her pulse quickened. "Doctor," she said carefully, eyes still on the vest, "has anyone logged the patient's personal effects?" Pierce frowned. "Standard intake." "Why? Because something's missing." Linda's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation." "I'm not accusing," Emily said. "I'm observing." Rex growled softly when a transport tech passed behind Jack's head. A man Emily had noticed earlier, mid-40s, average build. His badge read Calvin Rourke, Patient Transport Services. Rourke stopped short, hands raised. "Easy, buddy." Rex's growl deepened. Emily felt a chill crawl up her spine. Rourke forced a smile. "Dog doesn't like me, I guess." "Dogs usually have a reason," Emily said before she could stop herself. Rourke's eyes flicked to her, sharp, assessing, then away. "I'll wait outside." The moment he left the bay, Rex's growl faded. Emily looked back at Jack Mercer. 5 hours, she thought. 5 hours of guarding. Not the man alone, but what the man carried. Linda folded her arms. "Time's up. Proceed." Emily's mind raced. She was running out of space, out of authority. There was only one move left. She reached for her sleeve. "Not yet," she told herself. "Not until you're sure." Rex shifted his weight, eyes locked on her forearm as if he already knew what she was about to reveal. And somewhere deep beneath the noise of the ER, Emily felt the past everything she'd buried pressing hard against the present. If she crossed this line, there was no stepping back. Emily's fingers hovered at the cuff of her sleeve. For a split second, she hesitated not out of fear but calculation. Once she revealed what was beneath the fabric, there would be no pretending this was just a rookie nurse asking questions. The ER didn't forgive people who disrupted its rhythm. Neither did the past she'd worked so hard to leave behind. Carter Dr. Pierce warned, his voice tight. "Step back. Now." Linda Hawthorne glanced at her watch. "Security. Do it." The tranquilizer rifle lifted again. Rex's ears flattened completely this time. His stance lowered, muscles coiling, ready to spring if the dart flew. A ripple of unease spread through the room. Even the most hardened trauma staff recognized the edge of catastrophe, one wrong move away. Emily didn't raise her voice. "Rex," she said softly. The name landed like a key sliding into a lock. The dog's eyes snapped to her face. Emily slowly rolled up her sleeve. The tattoo revealed itself inch by inch, a compact symbol inked in faded black, precise lines, softened by time. A small trident integrated into a medical cross, numbers beneath it arranged in a way that meant nothing to civilians but everything to those who knew. For half a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Rex exhaled. Not a growl, not a bark. A long, controlled breath like a man finally lowering his weapon. His posture shifted, not relaxed but deferential. He took one deliberate step back from the stretcher. The trauma bay went dead silent. "What the hell is that?" Linda whispered. Rex sat. Saturday. 5 hours of rigid guarding undone in less than 2 seconds. Emily swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight, dry. She hadn't planned for this part the way it would feel to be seen by something that understood exactly who she was without explanation. Dr. Pierce stared at the tattoo. "Is that military?" Emily nodded once. "Former." Rex's gaze flicked between her arm and Jack's face, then back to her. He did not bare his teeth when she stepped closer. He watched, judged, accepted. Emily approached the stretcher slowly, careful not to startle him. When she reached Jack's side, she stopped just short of touching him. "Permission," she murmured to the dog, "not the room." Rex inclined his head a fraction. That was enough. Emily reached for the torn inner pocket of Jack's vest. Her fingers brushed fabric, then air. Empty. Her pulse spiked. "There," she said quietly. Something was taken. Dr. Pierce snapped out of his shock. "What this pocket should hold, mission-sensitive materials," Emily said. "Not personal effects." He wouldn't leave it unsecured. Linda's face drained of color. "Are you saying I'm saying someone accessed his gear after he was wounded?" Emily finished. And Rex knew. As if on cue, Rex stood and moved not toward Emily but toward the doorway. He stopped staring down the hall where Calvin Rourke had disappeared. Security exchanged uneasy looks. "That's ridiculous," Linda said sharply. "You're speculating." Emily turned to her eyes steady. "Then review the footage. Check who logged his belongings. Check who was near him when he came in." Dr. Pierce hesitated. "Linda, if she's right, stop," Linda snapped. "We are not turning my ER into a crime scene on the word of a nurse who's been here less than a week." Emily felt the old anger stir, the familiar burn of being dismissed, minimized. She pushed it down. "This isn't about me," she said. "He's still bleeding. But if what was taken leaves this building, you won't be able to put it back." The room hung in the balance. Then Jack Mercer groaned. It was faint, barely audible, but Rex reacted instantly, moving back to the stretcher, pressing his head against Jack's arm. Jack's eyelids fluttered, breath hitching. Vitals dropping again, a resident called out. "We're losing him." "Decision time," Dr. Pierce swore. "All right. We move. Now." Rex tensed but did not block them. Emily stepped in, close her voice low and steady. "Rex, stay with me." The dog looked at her, then at Jack, then back at her. He moved aside. For the first time that night, the trauma team surged forward unimpeded. They wheeled the stretcher toward the OR Rex, pacing just off Emily's shoulder like a shadow. No growling, no resistance, just vigilance. As they moved, Emily caught sight of Calvin Rourke at the far end of the hall, watching. His expression was no longer casual. It was sharp, intent. He turned and walked away. Emily's stomach dropped. Inside the OR, chaos reasserted itself. Bright lights, rapid commands, the metallic clatter of instruments. Emily stayed close, assisting where she was directed, keeping Rex within her peripheral vision. Jack's blood pressure dipped again. "Clamp," Pierce ordered. "We're chasing bleeders." Emily's mind worked on 2 tracks at once, medicine and memory. She remembered hands just like these, rooms just like this, the weight of knowing that someone's survival depended on choices made in seconds. Rex stood near the door, eyes never leaving Jack. Then he growled. Not loudly, not aggressively. Warning. Emily followed his gaze. The OR door cracked open. Calvin Rourke's face appeared framed by sterile light. "I was told to transport the patient to imaging once you're done," he said smoothly. "No, you weren't," Pierce snapped. "Get out." Rourke held up his hands. "Just doing my job." Rex took a step forward. Emily felt it click into place, the pattern she'd been circling all night. "Doctor," she said quietly. "He can't leave." Pierce frowned. "Why?" "Because whatever he took, he hasn't handed it off yet." Rourke's eyes flicked to her tattoo. Just for a second, that was all Emily needed. "Security," she said sharply. "Lock this wing down. Now." Linda's voice crackled over the intercom a moment later, tight and furious. "What is going on in my OR?" Emily met Rourke's stare unblinking. "Everything you hoped wouldn't," she said. Rex growled again, this time louder. And somewhere beyond the hospital walls, engines would soon turn, orders would be given, and a quiet night in the ER would ripple outward into something far bigger than anyone here was prepared for. The OR doors slammed shut with a hollow thud that echoed down the corridor. Inside, the air thickened, sterile, metallic, charged. "Doctor!" Pierce barked orders while suction lines whined and clamps snapped into place. Jack Mercer's chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven rhythms as the surgical team chased bleeding that refused to be tamed. Emily worked where she was told, her movements precise, economical. Hands in, hands out. Gauze passed. Pressure applied. But her attention never drifted far from the door, or from Rex, who stood planted near it, head low, eyes alert. "BP's unstable," a resident called. "We're not winning this." "Give me another unit," Pierce said. "We don't have a choice." Emily felt the familiar tension coil inside her, the quiet reckoning that came when medicine alone wasn't enough. Somewhere beyond the OR, a decision was already in motion. Someone had stolen something from Jack Mercer, and they hadn't gone far. Outside, Linda Hawthorne paced the hallway like a caged thing. Phones pressed to her ear. Voices dropped when she passed. "This is spiraling," she hissed to security. "I want answers." "You're about to get them," a guard replied, glancing toward the OR. Calvin Rourke waited at the nurse's station, arms folded, posture relaxed enough to sell innocence to anyone who wanted to buy it. But the calm didn't reach his eyes. They kept darting toward the OR doors, toward the K9 posted just inside. "Sir," security said, approaching him, "we're going to need you to stay put for a bit." Rourke smiled thinly. "I've got patients waiting." "Not tonight," the guard said. Rourke's jaw tightened. "This is ridiculous." Inside, the OR Rex shifted his weight, nails clicking softly against the floor. He could smell fear now, sweat sharpened by adrenaline. It didn't belong to Jack. It wasn't coming from Emily. It was coming from the hall. Rex growled. Emily looked up instantly. "What is it?" Pierce snapped, not looking away from the open chest cavity. "Something's wrong," Emily said. She didn't need to explain. Rex never growled without cause. Pierce hesitated, then nodded toward the resident. "You've got this. Carter, 5 seconds." Emily stepped toward the door, peeling off a glove as she went. Rex fell in beside her shoulder, brushing her knee. The moment the door opened, the noise rushed in, phones, voices, hurried footsteps. Linda turned on her. "What are you doing?" Emily didn't slow. "Preventing a mistake." Rex stopped short, blocking the path toward the exit corridor. Rourke froze. "That dog needs to be removed," he said quickly. "He's a safety hazard." Emily faced him squarely. "Where were you between intake and the second transfusion?" Rourke blinked. "Excuse me, you left the bay," Emily continued, voice even. "You came back twice. Once when his BP dropped. Once when security was distracted." Linda's eyes narrowed. "Is that true? I move patients," Rourke said. "That's my job." Emily nodded. "Then you won't mind explaining why Rex reacted every time you approached Jack's chest pocket." Rourke laughed, too sharp. "You're letting a dog dictate medical decisions now," Rex growled again, louder this time. Emily held Rourke's gaze. "No. I'm letting training. Training for what Linda demanded." Emily inhaled slowly. The hallway felt suddenly smaller, heavier. "For protecting assets," she said. Silence. Linda stared at her. "What assets?" Before Emily could answer, the overhead speakers crackled. "Attention Riverside Memorial. This is federal law enforcement. Please secure all exits. Do not interfere." Every head snapped up. Rourke's color drained. "What the hell?" Linda whispered. Security radios exploded with chatter. Doors locked. Elevators halted mid-floor. Rourke took a step back. Rex lunged. Not to bite, just enough to block teeth flashing inches from Rourke's thigh. Rourke stumbled, hands flying up. "Get that animal away from me," he shouted. Emily didn't move. Where is it? Calvin Rourke's eyes flicked toward the supply corridor. That was all Rex needed. He bolted. Emily sprinted after him, shoes slapping against tile. The corridor narrowed, lights flickering as emergency protocols kicked in. Rex skidded to a stop at a maintenance door, barking once sharp, decisive. Security caught up seconds later. "Open it," Emily ordered. The guard hesitated. "I need authorization." Now, she snapped. The door swung open. Inside, among mops and linen carts, lay a small black case, scuffed, sealed, unmistakably military. A red tamper strip hung loose. Emily's breath caught. She knelt, opening it just enough to confirm what she already knew. "Close it," she said. "Don't touch anything." The guard swallowed. "What is that? Something people kill for," Emily replied. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Men in dark jackets with federal insignia swept in, weapons low but ready. One of them met Emily's eyes, then dropped his gaze to her forearm. The tattoo. Recognition flashed. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we need to speak with you." Inside the OR, Jack Mercer's vitals dipped again, then steadied. "Pulse is holding," the resident called. "We might have him." Pierce exhaled hard. "Don't celebrate yet." Outside, Linda looked like she might faint. "This can't be happening," she whispered. Rourke sat cuffed against the wall, staring at the floor, breathing fast. Rex stood watch a few feet away, unblinking. One of the federal agents approached Emily again. "You have a name we can use," Emily hesitated. The past pressed close rank call signs, a life she'd buried under scrubs and silence. "Emily Carter," she said. "Registered nurse." The agent studied her a moment longer, then nodded. "For now." A medic burst from the OR. "He's stabilizing." Emily's shoulders sagged relief, washing through her in a dizzy wave. Rex trotted back to the OR door, sitting waiting. Emily followed, heart pounding. Jack Mercer was still alive. But the night wasn't done with any of them yet. By the time dawn crept up behind the rain clouds, Riverside Memorial Hospital no longer felt like a hospital. It felt like a perimeter. Federal agents stood at every exit, jackets dark with rain, eyes sharp and unreadable. Phones buzzed non-stop. Linda Hawthorne hovered near the nurse's station, pale and rigid, issuing clipped instructions that no one fully listened to. The ER ran, but on a different rhythm, now one tuned to caution and quiet fear. Emily washed her hands at the scrub sink for the third time, though there was no blood left on them. Inside the OR, Jack Mercer lay stitched and sedated, his vitals finally climbing out of the red. Dr. Pierce leaned back against the wall, exhaustion etched deep into his face. "We stopped the bleed," he said. "Barely. If we'd waited another 10 minutes, he didn't finish the sentence." Emily nodded once. She didn't need to hear it. Rex lay on the floor near Jack's bed, head resting on his paws, eyes half-lidded but never fully closing. Every time a machine beeped irregularly, his ears twitched. He hadn't left Jack's side since the surgery ended. 5 hours of guarding had turned into 6. A man in a dark federal jacket stepped into the OR doorway, pausing until Pierce acknowledged him. "We need a word," he said. Pierce sighed. "Take her. I need to write a report that'll probably end my career." Emily followed the agent into a quiet consultation room. The door closed softly behind them, muting the distant hum of the hospital. "My name is Agent Mark Holloway," he said, not offering a hand. "NCIS." Emily's jaw tightened slightly. She kept her face neutral. "You knew that case was important," Holloway continued. "You knew the dog wasn't just protecting his handler." How Emily leaned against the counter, folding her arms carefully so her sleeve slid down, covering the tattoo again. "I recognize the behavior," she said. "K9S. Don't guard without reason, especially not like that." "That's not an answer," Holloway said. Emily met his gaze. "It's the only one you're getting right now." Holloway studied her for a long moment. That case contained intel tied to an ongoing operation. If Rourke had walked out with it, people would have died. "I know," Emily said quietly. Holloway's eyes narrowed. "How?" Silence stretched. Emily exhaled slowly. "Because I used to be on the receiving end of information like that." Holloway glanced at her forearm. "Combat medic, yes." Unit Emily shook her head. "Not anymore. Holloway didn't push yet. Rourke didn't act alone. We're still pulling threads. Hospital access logs. Cameras. Anyone who crossed that bay is under review." Emily felt a familiar cold settle in her stomach. "Including me." Especially you, Holloway said evenly. You disrupted protocol. You issued orders without authority. You triggered a federal response. Emily nodded. And Jack Mercer is alive. Holloway's jaw tightened. That's not lost on us. Outside, the room-raised voices echoed briefly, Linda Hawthorne arguing with a uniformed officer. This is my hospital, Linda snapped. You can't just— Yes, we can, the officer replied calmly. Emily closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them again, Holloway was watching her closely. You left the service, he said. Why? The question landed heavier than any accusation. Emily's voice stayed level. Because staying would have cost me more than leaving. Holloway studied her for a moment longer, then nodded once. We'll talk again. As he opened the door, Rex's bark cut through the hallway, sharp, urgent. Emily's head snapped up. She pushed past Holloway and ran. The OR doors were open. Nurses clustered near Jack's bed. Rex stood, rigid teeth bared not at staff, but at the far corner of the room. Jack Mercer was awake, barely but awake. His eyes fluttered, unfocused breath shallow. Rex pressed close, whining softly, grounding him. Emily moved to the bedside without thinking. Jack, she said gently, you're in a hospital. You're safe. Jack's gaze shifted slow, heavy, until it landed on her face. Confusion flickered. Then recognition. His eyes dropped to her forearm. Emily realized too late her sleeve had ridden up. Jack's brow furrowed. His lips moved, struggling past the tube in his throat. A sound rasped out, broken, hoarse. Ghost. Cross. The room froze. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Dr. Pierce frowned. What did he say? Jack swallowed painfully, eyes locked on Emily. Ghost Cross, he repeated clearer now. That's your mark. Rex let out a low, satisfied huff. Emily closed her eyes. Linda Hawthorne stared between them. What does that mean? Emily opened her eyes again, steadying herself. It means he knows me. Jack's hand twitched weakly. Rex nudged it with his nose, grounding him again. You weren't supposed to be here, Jack murmured. They said you were gone. Emily swallowed hard. Plans change. Jack's gaze sharpened the soldier in him, pushing through the haze. They took it, didn't they? Yes, Emily said. But we got it back. Jack exhaled relief, washing through his face. Good. Because if that got out, I know, Emily interrupted softly. Rest. Jack's eyes closed again, consciousness slipping. But his hand found Rex's fur fingers curling weakly. The room breathed again. Linda backed away slowly, face pale. What? Who is she? She whispered to Pierce. Pierce didn't answer. He was watching Emily now with a new expression. Not irritation. Respect. Holloway stepped into the doorway, taking in the scene. His eyes flicked from Jack to Rex to Emily. Ghost Cross, he repeated quietly. Emily met his gaze. That name doesn't belong here anymore. Holloway's expression was unreadable. We'll see. As agents resumed their sweep and the hospital tried to pretend it was returning to normal, Emily stood at Jack's bedside, one hand resting lightly on the rail. Rex leaned against her leg just enough to make contact. For 5 hours he had guarded his seal. Now he was watching her, and Emily knew deep down that whatever she'd just been pulled back into was far from over. Morning light filtered through the high windows of Riverside Memorial, thin and grey, doing little to soften the tension that had settled into the walls. The hospital was technically open, patients still being treated, charts still being written, but everyone felt it. Something had shifted. Something had been exposed. Emily Carter felt it in the way conversations stopped when she passed. She walked the corridor outside the ICU with measured steps, coffee untouched in her hand. Her scrubs were wrinkled, now streaked faintly with iodine and fatigue. She hadn't slept, hadn't even sat down. Every nerve in her body was still tuned to threat. Inside the ICU room, Jack Mercer lay motionless, ventilator assisting his breathing. His vitals were stable for now. Rex lay curled beside the bed, eyes open, tracking every sound. He lifted his head when Emily entered, tail thumping once against the floor. Easy, she murmured. Rex settled, but his gaze never left her. Emily checked the monitors, adjusting a drip by instinct. The motions were automatic muscle memory layered on top of training, civilian and otherwise. She glanced at Jack's face, pale but steady, and felt a wave of relief she hadn't allowed herself yet. He was alive. That mattered. The door opened behind her. "Emily Carter," Agent Holloway said. "We need to talk." Again. She didn't turn. "About what?" "About who you are," Holloway replied, "and why your name just triggered 3 separate alerts in our system." Emily finally faced him. "I didn't give you permission to run my name." Holloway's mouth tightened. "You lost that leverage when you exposed a classified call sign in a public ICU." Jack stirred faintly at the sound of their voices. Rex's ears pricked. Emily lowered her voice. "Then lower yours." Holloway glanced at Jack, then nodded. "Walk with me." They moved into a side hall out of earshot. 2 uniformed officers stood nearby, pretending not to listen. Holloway folded his arms. "Ghost Cross. You know what that tag means." Emily stared at the wall past him. "It meant something. Years ago. It still does," Holloway said. "It's linked to joint medical extraction operations. Black sites. Places we don't acknowledge." Emily's jaw clenched. "I was a medic. I kept people alive. That's it." "You were more than that," Holloway countered. "You were embedded, trusted. You had clearance that most officers don't." Had Emily corrected. Holloway studied her. Why walk away? Emily's silence stretched. Because the night she didn't make it in time still woke her up sweating, she thought. Because command called it acceptable loss, and she never could. "Because I was done being useful," she said instead. Holloway didn't look convinced. "You don't just disappear from that world." "I did," Emily said. "I changed my name. I went to nursing school. I stayed quiet. And yet here you are," Holloway said, standing between a SEAL, a K-9, and stolen intel. Emily met his gaze. "I didn't go looking for this." "No," Holloway agreed. "But it found you." Down the hall, voices rose. Linda Hawthorne's sharp heels announced her before her words did. "This is unacceptable," she snapped. "My staff is shaken. My hospital is crawling with agents. And I still don't have a clear explanation." Holloway turned. "With respect, ma'am," Linda interrupted. Her eyes flicked to Emily hard. "She started this." Emily felt the familiar heat rise, but she held it back. "I finished it," Emily said calmly. "There's a difference." Linda scoffed. "You violated protocol. You endangered staff. You concealed your background." "I concealed my past," Emily said. "I did my job." Linda's voice dropped. "You brought federal attention down on this hospital." Emily didn't blink. "Someone stole classified material from a dying man in your ER." Silence hit like a dropped tray. Holloway broke it. "Miss, Hawthorne, if it helps the alternative outcome, would have been far worse." Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't over." "No," Emily agreed. "It isn't." Linda turned on her heel and walked away. Holloway watched her go. "You're not popular." Emily huffed quietly. "I didn't apply for it." Back in the ICU, Jack stirred again. This time his eyes opened fully. Rex was instantly at his side. "Easy," Emily said, stepping closer. "You're okay." Jack's gaze sharpened as awareness returned. He looked at the monitors, then at Emily. "Still here," he rasped. "Yes," Emily said. "So are you." Jack swallowed. "They get it back, yes." He closed his eyes briefly, relief cutting through the pain. "Good." His eyes opened again. "They won't stop." Emily nodded. "I know." Jack's gaze flicked to Holloway, who stood just inside the doorway. "He's not wrong," Jack said. "What you touched, it's bigger than Rourke." "I know," Emily repeated. Rex shifted, placing his head on Jack's leg. Jack's voice dropped. "They'll come for you." Emily met his eyes. "They already have." Holloway stepped forward. "Chief Mercer, rest." Jack smirked weakly. "Don't worry. I've had worse mornings." Emily allowed herself a small smile, then it faded. Because something else was wrong. She felt it before she saw it. A pressure, a change in the room. Rex stood suddenly, body rigid, eyes locked on the hallway. Not aggressive. Alert. Emily turned. A man stood at the far end of the ICU corridor, dressed like hospital maintenance. Cap low. Badge turned slightly away. He didn't move. He just watched. Emily's heart rate spiked. Rex growled deep and low. Holloway followed her line of sight, hand dropping instinctively toward his weapon. The man turned and walked away. Too calm, too clean. Emily's pulse hammered. "That's not one of yours," Holloway swore. "Lock the unit, now." Alarms sounded softly as doors sealed. Emily stared down the hall where the man had vanished. Whoever he was, he hadn't come for Jack. He'd come for her. And this time Rex stepped closer to Emily's side, not Jack's. The ICU doors sealed with a pneumatic hiss, cutting the corridor in half. Red indicator lights blinked above each exit, and a low alert tone pulsed through the unit, soft enough not to panic patients, sharp enough to put everyone on edge. Nurses froze mid-step. A respiratory therapist clutched a clipboard to her chest, eyes wide. "Security to ICU," a voice crackled over the intercom. "Unidentified individual last seen heading west corridor." Emily felt Rex press against her leg, solid and warm. Not fear, focus. He was tracking. Agent Holloway raised his radio. "All units be advised. Possible hostile on site. Do not engage unless necessary." Jack Mercer's stirred brow furrowing as the tension spiked around him. Rex whined once, then stilled. Emily leaned in close to Jack's ear. "You're safe. Stay with me." Jack's eyes opened sharper now, despite the drugs. "That wasn't a hospital guy," he murmured. "No," Emily said. "It wasn't." Linda Hawthorne reappeared at the far end of the unit, flanked by 2 security officers. "What is going on now?" Holloway didn't look at her. "Someone slipped through your access controls." Linda bristled. "That's impossible," Rex growled. Emily's gaze flicked to the floor, faint scuffs near the corner barely visible unless you knew what to look for. The man had pivoted fast, military fast. He knew the layout, Emily said quietly. He wasn't improvising. Holloway's jaw tightened. "Sweep teams are moving." The minutes that followed stretched thin and brittle. Every footstep echoed. Every door click sounded too loud. Rex paced the length of the ICU corridor in tight arcs, nose low, tail stiff. When he stopped abruptly at a supply alcove, Emily's pulse jumped. "There," she said. Security approached cautiously, weapons drawn. The alcove was empty, just carts and linen bins. Holloway cursed under his breath. "He's gone." "No," Emily said. He doubled back. Rex turned, trotting the opposite direction, straight toward the stairwell access. He halted at the door, nose pressed to the seam, growling. Holloway raised a hand. "Hold." A beat. Then the stairwell door burst open. The man lunged fast, precise, slamming into the nearest guard and knocking his weapon aside. The corridor erupted into shouts. Rex surged forward, teeth flashing, colliding with the man's arm. The attacker staggered but didn't fall. He twisted, throwing Rex off with brutal efficiency. Emily moved without thinking. She stepped into the space between them, hands up, voice sharp and controlled. "Stop." The man froze. Not because of the command, but because his eyes locked on her forearm. Her sleeve had ridden up again. The tattoo was fully visible now. Recognition hit his face like a blow. "Ghost cross," he said softly. Not a question. Holloway's weapon came up. "Hands where I can see them." The man ignored him, eyes still on Emily. "They said you were dead." Emily didn't blink. "They lie." For a fraction of a second, something like regret flickered across his expression. Then he moved. Rex launched again, this time faster. The man spun, but Rex anticipated it, clamping down on the sleeve, dragging him off balance. Holloway and security piled on, forcing the attacker to the ground. Cuffs snapped shut. Silence crashed down. Rex stood over the man's chest, heaving eyes burning. Emily exhaled shakily, realizing her hands were trembling. Holloway stared at the attacker, then at Emily. "You want to explain why he recognized you?" Emily closed her eyes briefly. "Because I used to run with the people he answers to." The man laughed bitterly. "You don't run from them." Emily met his gaze. "Watch me." NCIS agents swarmed the unit moments later, hauling the attacker away. As they passed, the man craned his neck, eyes never leaving Emily. "They'll come again," he said. "You know that." Emily's voice was steady. "Then I'll be ready." The doors resealed. The ICU exhaled. Jack Mercer watched it all with a soldier's clarity. When the chaos settled, he let out a slow breath. "Guess you weren't kidding," he murmured. Emily managed a small smile. "I don't joke about this stuff." Rex returned to her side, pressing his head into her hip. She rested a hand on his neck, grounding herself in the warmth of his fur. Linda Hawthorne stood, rigid face pale. "This is beyond anything I signed up for." Holloway turned to her. "Your hospital was used as a target. That makes it part of the operation now." Linda's voice wavered. "What happens to her?" Holloway followed her gaze to Emily. "That depends." Emily straightened. "On what?" "On whether you're willing to step back into the light," Holloway said. "At least long enough to end this." Emily looked at Jack, alive, breathing. At Rex, steady, loyal. At the ICU, full of people who had almost paid the price for secrets they didn't know existed. She nodded once. "I'll help." Jack exhaled, a rough laugh escaping him. "Figures." Rex wagged his tail once. Holloway extended a hand. "Then we start now." Emily didn't take it. She rolled down her sleeve, covering the tattoo again. "We start when my patient is safe." Holloway hesitated, then nodded. "Fair." As the agents cleared out and the unit slowly returned to its rhythm, Emily remained at Jack's bedside, hand resting lightly on the rail. Rex lay at her feet, eyes open, vigilant. The storm outside had finally broken. Sunlight pushed through the clouds, pale and tentative. But Emily knew the calm wouldn't last. The tattoo had been seen. The line had been crossed. And somewhere beyond the hospital walls, people who remembered the name Ghost Cross were already adjusting their plans. By late afternoon, the ICU had settled into an uneasy calm. Machines hummed. Curtains whispered as staff moved from bed to bed. Sunlight stretched across the floor in long, pale bands that made everything look deceptively normal. To anyone passing through it might have seemed like another hard day in a busy hospital. Emily knew better. She sat at the small desk just outside Jack Mercer's room, charting with one eye on the glass. Rex lay stretched across the doorway, blocking it, without blocking it, present, unmistakable, but calm. His ears twitched at every footstep. His trust in Emily was quiet now, unquestioning. Agent Holloway returned an hour after the incident, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired in a way coffee couldn't fix. "They've identified him," Holloway said, keeping his voice low. "Former contractor. Burned asset. He wasn't here for Mercer." Emily didn't look up from the chart. "I know. He was here to confirm something," Holloway continued. "That you're alive. That you're still capable." Emily's pen paused, then considerate confirmed. Holloway studied her. "You realize what that means?" "It means they'll escalate," Emily said. "They always do." Inside the room, Jack shifted. Emily rose, immediately entering just as his eyes fluttered open. Rex was on his feet in an instant, tail stiff gaze locked on Jack. "You with us?" Emily asked gently. Jack swallowed. "Yeah." His voice was hoarse but stronger. "Heard pieces." Emily adjusted the bed slightly, checking his vitals. "Don't try to be brave. Just stay awake." Jack smirked faintly. "You always hated that line." Emily froze for half a second, then recovered. "You're confused." Jack's eyes sharpened. "No, I'm not. You said that to me in Kandahar." Same tone. Silence stretched between them. Rex glanced from Jack to Emily, ears pricked, sensing the shift. Emily exhaled slowly. "You shouldn't be talking." "Humor me," Jack said. "Why'd you vanish?" Emily's jaw tightened. "Because disappearing was the only way to stop being useful to people who saw bodies as numbers." Jack's gaze softened. "You saved my life back then." "I did my job," Emily said. Jack shook his head slightly. "You did more." The door opened quietly. Holloway stepped in, pausing when he sensed the intimacy of the moment. Jack looked at him. "He's not wrong, you know." Holloway raised a brow. "About what?" "About escalation," Jack said. "If they sent someone into a hospital, they're desperate." "They won't try again here," Holloway replied. "They will," Emily said. "But not for Jack." Holloway frowned. Then for what Emily's gaze dropped to Jack's chest, then to Rex. "For the dog," she said. "And for me." Holloway stiffened. "Explain." "They don't care about the intel anymore," Emily continued. "They care about what it proves. That someone trained like me can still disrupt their operations. That K9 protocols can still outthink them." Jack let out a dry laugh. "They hate loose ends." Holloway nodded slowly. "We can relocate you. Both of you." Emily shook her head. "That just moves the problem." Jack's eyes narrowed. "What are you thinking?" Emily met his gaze. "I'm thinking this ends when they realize I'm not hiding anymore." Rex stood, moving closer to her, pressing his flank against her leg as if sealing the decision. Holloway studied the dog, then Emily. "You're asking to bait them." "I'm asking to control the ground," Emily said. "Here, with witnesses, with cameras, with people who don't disappear." Holloway exhaled. "That's risky." "So was letting them steal intel out of an ER," Emily replied. A long silence followed. Finally, Holloway nodded. "We'll coordinate, but you don't act alone." Emily inclined her head. "Agreed." Jack closed his eyes briefly. "I hate that I'm stuck in this bed." Emily allowed herself a small smile. "You did your part." Hours passed. Night returned quietly, without storms this time. The hospital lights dimmed, casting long shadows. Emily took a short break by the window, stretching her back, sipping lukewarm coffee. She felt it before she saw it. Rex's head snapped up, his ears flattened, not aggressive but alert. Emily's pulse quickened. She turned slowly. At the end of the corridor stood a woman in scrubs she didn't recognize. Average height. Hair pulled back. Badge clipped where it should be but turned slightly inward. The woman met Emily's gaze. Didn't smile. Didn't look away. She took one step forward. Rex growled. Soft. Controlled. The woman stopped. Holloway's voice crackled in Emily's earpiece. "You see her too?" "Yes," Emily whispered. "Don't move." The woman raised her hands slowly. "Relax," she said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." Emily didn't respond. "I just want to talk," the woman continued. "Ghost Cross." The name echoed down the hall like a dropped weapon. Nurses froze. A doctor glanced up from a chart, sensing something wrong. Rex moved fully in front of Emily, now stance wide, unyielding. "You don't belong here," Emily said evenly. The woman tilted her head. "Neither do you." Holloway's team moved into position, blocking exits. The woman didn't flinch. "You made things messy," she said to Emily. "You always did." Emily felt a cold clarity settle over her. "You're not extraction," she said. "You're cleanup." The woman smiled faintly. "Smart as ever." Rex barked once, sharp, commanding. The woman's eyes flicked to him. "Good dog," she murmured. "Shame." Emily's voice hardened. "Step back. Now." The woman sighed, taking a step back, but not in retreat. "In calculation, you can't protect everyone," she said softly. "You never could." Holloway's voice came through firm. "Ma'am, lie down on the ground. Now." For a moment it seemed she might comply. Then she reached into her pocket. Rex lunged. The woman cursed as agents tackled her, the object clattering across the floor, a small transmitter blinking red. Security swarmed. Cuffs snapped shut. Silence followed, thick and absolute. Emily's hands shook now. She hadn't even realized she was holding her breath until it rushed out of her. Holloway approached, eyes hard. "You were right." Emily nodded slowly. "They're done testing." Rex returned to her side, pressing close, steady and warm. From the ICU room, Jack Mercer watched through the glass, understanding etched across his face. This wasn't over, but for the first time the battlefield was visible, and Emily Carter was no longer hiding. The transmitter lay on the tile like a beating heart, its red light pulsing in steady intervals. No one moved. Emily stared at it, mind already, racing through possibilities, range relay points, what it might have already told someone listening. Rex stood rigid at her side, a low rumble vibrating in his chest, eyes locked on the woman pinned beneath two agents. Holloway broke the spell. Baggett, shielded. An agent slipped on gloves and dropped the device into a lined evidence pouch, sealing it with practiced speed. The red light vanished. The woman laughed softly from the floor. Not hysterical. Not afraid. Amused. "Too late," she said. "You think that was the first ping?" Holloway knelt beside her, voice cold. "Names. Now." She turned her head just enough to look at Emily. "You always did draw a crowd." Emily didn't respond. She crouched, meeting the woman's eyes at the same level. "You weren't here to extract me," she said. "You were here to confirm." The woman smiled faintly. "And to apply pressure." Emily nodded once. "You applied it." Rex growled, deep final. The woman's gaze flicked to him, calculating. "Still leading with the dog," she murmured. "Predictable. Predictable saves lives," Emily replied. "Your move killed people. A flicker annoyance this time. Not my call." Everything is a call, Emily said quietly. You just outsourced yours. Holloway stood. Take her. Agents hauled the woman to her feet and moved down the corridor. The ICU doors remained sealed. Cameras tracked every step. Nurses resumed motion cautiously, like a tide creeping back after a sudden retreat. Emily exhaled slowly, forcing the tremor out of her hands. She looked down at Rex, resting a palm against his neck. Good boy, she whispered. Rex leaned into her touch, grounding her. Inside the ICU room, Jack Mercer watched with a soldier's stillness. When Emily entered, he lifted his chin slightly. She, one of yours? No, Emily said. She's one of the reasons I left. Jack studied her face. They're not going to stop. I know. They'll escalate, Jack continued. Bigger teams, quieter methods. Emily nodded. Which is why we don't give them quiet. Holloway stepped in behind her. We've got warrants moving. Intercepts. Enough to start rolling people up. Start, Emily echoed. Not finish. Holloway's mouth tightened. You're asking for more than protection. I'm asking for transparency, Emily said. Sunlight, courtrooms, press, names on paper. Holloway hesitated. That costs political capital. Emily met his gaze. So does a K-9 getting tranquilized in a trauma bay while someone walks out with classified material. Jack let out a breathy chuckle. She's not wrong. Holloway looked from Jack to Emily to Rex. He sighed. You want to burn the shadows. I want to end the leverage, Emily replied. No more plausible deniability. A beat. Okay, Holloway said. We do this clean. We do it loud. The decision landed with weight. Hours later, as night deepened, Riverside Memorial transformed again, this time into something deliberate. Media vans lined the street, kept at a distance by uniformed officers. Hospital administration issued a statement that said very little and meant even less. But the presence alone sent a message. Emily stood by the window watching the lights. Rex sat beside her, steady as a post. She felt Jack's eyes on her. You sure about this? He asked. She nodded. I've been sure for a long time. I just didn't have the ground. Jack swallowed, pain flickering across his face as he shifted. You'll be a target. I already am. Jack's gaze softened. Then you won't be alone. Emily turned to him. Your job is to heal. My job, Jack said, is to finish the mission. Before Emily could respond, Rex's ears perked. He rose, pacing once, then twice before settling again. Not alarmed. Assessing. What is it? Jack asked. Change, Emily said. They're reacting. Holloway returned with a tablet, setting it on the counter. We've got movement. Accounts freezing. 2 resignations. 1 medical leave. Emily glanced at the screen. Names scrolled past, some familiar, some not. Threads she recognized now pulled into the light. Good, she said. Keep going. A nurse peeked in. Miss Carter, the board wants a word. Emily almost smiled. Tell them I'm with my patient. Minutes later, Linda Hawthorne appeared, expression carefully neutral. This hospital will cooperate, she said. Fully. Emily met her eyes. Then start by protecting your staff. Linda stiffened. We do. No, Emily said calmly. You protect protocols. Tonight, people mattered more. Silence. Linda nodded once. Point taken. As dawn approached again, softer this time, Jack slept real sleep, his vitals steady. Rex curled at the foot of the bed, finally allowing his eyes to close. Emily stepped into the hallway with Holloway. What happens to me, Holloway considered. You'll testify. You'll consult. You'll be visible. And after Holloway's mouth curved into something like respect. After you decide. Emily looked back through the glass at Jack and Rex, at the ICU that had nearly become a crime scene, at the hospital that had become a line in the sand. Then let's finish it, she said. Holloway nodded. We already started. Somewhere far from Riverside, memorial phones buzzed in dark rooms. Meetings were called. Contingencies were burned. The shadows had noticed, and they were afraid. The first hearing was scheduled for noon. It came faster than anyone expected, propelled by leaks, pressure, and the kind of panic that followed exposure. By mid-morning, Riverside Memorial was surrounded by satellite trucks and reporters calling out questions no one was authorized to answer. Emily watched from a quiet corner of the ICU as sunlight filled the room in clean, unforgiving lines. Jack Mercer lay propped slightly higher now, color returning to his face. The ventilator was gone. Tubes remained, but fewer. Progress measured in inches earned the hard way. Rex lifted his head when the TV mounted in the corner flickered to life. A news anchor's voice filled the room tight with urgency. Sources confirm an ongoing federal investigation into a covert contractor network following a breach at a civilian hospital. Emily muted it. Jack exhaled slowly. That didn't take long. No, Emily said. It never does once the story escapes. Rex stood and stretched nails, clicking softly. He paced once, then returned to Jack's side, settling again. His presence had become a constant and unspoken assurance that the worst had passed, or at least that they'd survived it. A knock sounded at the door. Holloway stepped in suit jacket on, now posture formal. They're ready. Emily nodded. I'll be there. Jack's eyes sharpened. You don't have to do this alone. Emily met his gaze. I won't. Outside the ICU, the hallway buzzed with restrained energy. Agents, attorneys, administrators, everyone moving with purpose, avoiding eye contact, guarding words. Emily walked through it like a fixed-point shoulders, squared steps measured. They assembled in a secured conference room 2 floors down. Cameras were prohibited, but the weight of them lingered anyway, imagined lenses pointed inward. A long table. Bottled water untouched. Folders stacked neatly. Emily took her seat. Across from her sat men and women who had never been meant to share the same room. Career officials. Legal counsel. Faces she recognized from the past, older, now lines etched, deeper expressions guarded. The chair at the head of the table cleared his throat. Miss Carter, thank you for appearing voluntarily. Emily folded her hands. You asked me to tell the truth. That's correct, he said. Start with the tattoo. She did. She spoke evenly without embellishment. Of training, of integration, of the network that used medicine as both shield and weapon. She explained how assets were moved through civilian spaces, how K9S were trained to guard not just handlers but materials, how Rex's behavior was not instinct but protocol. Murmurs rippled, and you left, one of them said. Why Emily held the man's gaze. Because the cost stopped being theoretical. Silence, she continued. Of the breach, of Rourke, of the woman in scrubs, of the transmitter. Each detail placed carefully on the table, a chain assembled link by link. Holloway spoke next, corroborating. Names were introduced, evidence referenced, warrants cited. A woman at the far end leaned forward. Miss Carter, are you claiming this network still operates? Emily answered without hesitation. I'm stating that it adapts. Another voice cut in. And your intent now, Emily took a breath. To make it unprofitable. The chair frowned. How? By removing secrecy, Emily said. By ending the leverage that comes from silence. A pause. This will be messy, someone said. Yes, Emily replied. But it will be finite. The meeting ended without applause or closure. Decisions would be made elsewhere. Deals struck. Lines drawn. But as Emily stood, she felt something loosen in her chest. Outside, Holloway caught up to her. You did well. Emily didn't smile. I did what I had to. They'll try to discredit you, Holloway said. Say you're unstable, biased. Emily nodded. They always do. And if they can't, Emily's eyes hardened, then they'll try something else. Back in the ICU, Jack watched the news again, this time with the sound low. Rex lay at his feet, finally asleep in full chest, rising and falling in deep, even breaths. Emily entered quietly. Jack looked up. How bad enough, she said. Good enough. Jack considered that. They're going to put you on a pedestal or under a microscope, both Emily replied. Jack smiled faintly. Figures. A nurse entered with vitals, cheerful despite the tension. He's doing great, she said, adjusting a monitor. Strong guy. Jack closed his eyes, exhaling. Told you. Emily leaned against the wall, fatigue finally catching up. Her legs trembled slightly now that the adrenaline had drained. Rex stirred, lifted his head and crossed the room to her. He pressed his forehead gently into her thigh. Emily rested her hand on his neck, eyes closing for a brief moment. I know, she whispered. Me too. The door opened again. Linda Hawthorne stood there, posture stiff but different, now less defensive, more resigned. Miss Carter, she said, the board has placed you on administrative leave, with pay. Emily nodded. Understood. And Linda continued, we'd like you to return. When this is over. In a leadership role. Emily opened her eyes. We'll see. Linda hesitated, then added quietly, you were right. About priorities. Emily inclined her head. Then protect them. As Linda left, Emily felt the final piece slide into place. The hospital. The investigation. Jack's recovery. Rex's watchful calm. The pieces were aligning, but alignment didn't mean safety. Her phone buzzed. A message from Holloway Movement overseas. Quiet but real. Emily's jaw set. She looked at Jack sleeping. At Rex, alert again now, watching her with unwavering trust. The storm hadn't ended. It had shifted, and whatever came next would not happen in the dark. The day Jack Mercer was cleared to leave the ICU, the hospital felt different. Not quieter, just steadier. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of Riverside Memorial, catching dust motes in the air and turning them into something almost peaceful. Nurses moved with the familiar rhythm of a place that had survived a storm and learned where its weak points were. Emily stood at the foot of Jack's bed as a physical therapist adjusted his brace. His movements were slow, careful, but deliberate. The kind of pain that came with healing, not danger. Rex watched every step. You'd think he was the one being discharged, Jack muttered, nodding at the dog. Emily smiled faintly. He earned it. Rex's tail thumped once. Dr. Pierce entered chart tucked under his arm. He looked at Jack, then at Emily. You're good to transfer to recovery housing, he said. Another week of monitoring, then you're out. Jack exhaled. About time. Pierce hesitated, then extended his hand to Emily. I misjudged you. Emily took it. You did your job. Pierce shook his head. So did you. When it mattered. As he left, Jack studied Emily with quiet intensity. You know they're watching, he said. I know, Emily replied. Not just you, Jack added. Everyone connected to this. Emily nodded. That's why it ends here. Outside the room, the hallway filled with subdued motion. A small group waited near the elevators, uniformed officers, federal agents, hospital security. Not a show of force. A show of closure. Agent Holloway stood among them, tablet in hand. When he saw Emily, he inclined his head. We're ready. Jack was wheeled out slowly, Rex walking at Emily's side like a silent escort. Heads turned as they passed. Some curious, some respectful, some ashamed. Linda Hawthorne stood near the nurse's station, hands clasped. She watched Emily approach, then spoke quietly. The board approved new access protocols and a K-9 accommodation policy. Emily paused. Good. Linda swallowed. I'm sorry. Emily met her eyes. Learn from it. They reached the elevators. The doors slid open. Jack glanced at Emily. You coming? Emily shook her head. Not yet. Rex stopped looking between them. Jack frowned. He won't go without you. Emily knelt, meeting Rex at eye level. She rested both hands on his collar, steady and warm. You did your job, she whispered. Now finish it with him. Rex whined softly. Emily leaned in, pressing her forehead to his for a brief moment, an exchange without witnesses, without words. Then she stood. Rex hesitated. Jack reached down, placing his hand on the dog's neck. It's okay, boy. Rex stepped into the elevator. The doors closed. Emily stood alone in the hallway as the elevator descended. For the first time since the helicopter had landed, the pressure eased. Not relief, resolution. Holloway approached. You could have gone with them. Emily looked at the closed doors. I have one more thing to do. He nodded, figured. They walked together toward a smaller conference room, one last stop before the hospital could finally exhale. Inside waited a handful of people, prosecutors, investigators, and 2 empty chairs where defendants would soon sit. Holloway gestured. When you're ready. Emily stepped forward. She spoke clearly, precisely. Not as Ghost Cross, not as a nurse on her first night, but as a witness who refused to disappear again. She named processes, named failures, named the quiet decisions that let dangerous people move through ordinary places. No dramatics, just truth. When she finished, no one rushed to speak. The weight of it settled where it belonged. Outside, sirens wailed briefly, then faded. Holloway closed his folder. This is enough. Emily exhaled slowly. Good. As she left the room, her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. We're done. Emily stared at the screen, then deleted it. The sun was low when she stepped outside. The air smelled clean, washed by the storm that had passed days ago. Across the street, Jack waited in a transport vehicle. Rex visible through the window, ears perked the moment he saw her. Jack lifted a hand in a small salute. Emily returned it. The vehicle pulled away. Emily stood there until it disappeared from view. For the first time in years, there was nothing chasing her. No shadows. No silence demanding obedience. Just a hospital behind her, changed but standing, and a future that no longer required hiding. She turned back toward the entrance badge, catching the light as she walked. Not a rookie. Not a ghost. Just a nurse who did the right thing and stayed. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't charging forward, it's standing still when everyone tells you to step aside. In this story, what changed everything wasn't rank, authority, or power. It was attention. A nurse who chose to notice instead of obey blindly. A K9 who trusted instinct over fear. A moment where doing the right thing mattered more than following the easiest rule. Real life works the same way. Too often we're taught to stay quiet, not cause trouble, not question systems that seem bigger than us. We're told, that's not your place. But history and everyday life proves something else. Real change almost always starts with someone who refuses to look away. You don't need a uniform to protect honor. You don't need a title to defend justice. And you don't need permission to do what's right. What you do need is courage, the quiet kind. The kind that shows up in hospitals, classrooms, offices, families. The kind that says, if not me, then who? This story isn't about heroes who want recognition. It's about people and even animals who act because they must, because their conscience won't let them walk away. If this story moved you, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below. What moment in your life tested your courage or sense of right and wrong? And tell us where you're watching from. This community spans the world. If you believe stories like this matter, stories about integrity, sacrifice, and quiet strength, subscribe to the channel. More powerful stories are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one. Sometimes, one choice is all it takes to change everything.